Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you didn't mind the short little break while I got some water and got the next game loaded up. We're going to be hopping again into puCK versus GAMETIME, and of course, let's talk about these two players. Both of them, really cool guys. I think puCK has been that name in the North American scene for a long time. Ages ago, started off as that guy that everyone would say, oh man, this guy just 2-base all-ins every game. And now, it's so funny to look back on that and think, oh, this guy is known as one of the bigger macro Protoss players out there. Loves his disruptor control, loves his blink stalker control, and even the warp prism kind of blink micro that you can do. He's very, very good at. But honestly, just a very solid macro Protoss player. But seems to have been struggling in PvZ a little bit across the last 38 PvZs that he's played. He's got a 42% win rate. puCK has definitely been one of those players I think has a lot of ups and downs. When he's doing well, he's doing really well. When he's not doing well, he's really not doing well. It makes him a little bit more volatile of a player in terms of performance, but seems like he has been feeling a little bit better lately, so I'm interested to see how things will go for him. GAMETIME is my player pick for up-and-coming talent of 2017, my breakout player pick for 2017 in the North American scene. I think that this guy is going to go far. He's incredibly talented, and I think the biggest thing about GAMETIME is that he's incredibly hard-working. He's got an amazing work ethic, always looking to improve, always looking to try and find ways to play better and to make fewer mistakes. But one of his biggest, I guess, faults is that he is so serious about StarCraft in the game that he gets in his own head a lot of the time. He ends up almost defeating himself. Previous seasons of Challenger, he's qualified, he would lose in the winner's bracket, and immediately, just first round of the loser's bracket, he would just go fully on tilt and immediately just drop out, show really, really poor games. His words, not mine, when I say those, he felt like he just showed incredibly terrible performance. And it was really, really sad to watch, but if he can overcome those kinds of nerves, if he can overcome that kind of, overcome losses and not feel as bad about them, bounce back from them, come back in a loser's bracket, or even just come back in a series, I think this guy's going to go really, really far this year. So we're going to take a look and see how these guys do as we move on to our first map. It is once again going to be Sequencer. We'll see you guys there. Here we are in the winner's bracket, round of 16 match. Protoss versus Zerg as we start up in the top right-hand corner of the map. Top of the Zerg player, the yellow player from Sloth Esports Club. It's GAMETIME. And his opponent spawned down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. We have the red Protoss player representing OSC Roots. Put your hands together for puCK. Now, I talked a bit about how puCK is a really good macro player, how he can be incredibly on point, and his micro is crazy, crazy good. puCK's playstyle generally tends to revolve around, let's get up a good economy while I have some small squadron of units, whether it be Phoenix play, whether it be a Warp Prism with two Archons, a handful of Depths in a Warp Prism, or even just Blink Stalkers, putting pressure on my opponent with a not massive cost investment, and I play very greedy or economic behind it. Now, GAMETIME's playstyle is very different. GAMETIME oftentimes tries to go for, I would say, a very standard style of play, but I think he's stronger as a mid-game player. He does okay in the early game. He does pretty well in the late game, but really it's that mid-game that I think he ends up winning most of his games. And typically, if a series tends to average around 8 to maybe 10 minutes I think those are the series that Game Time tends to do a little bit better in. One of the funny things also is that I feel as though Game Time does a bit better as the games are more straightforward. When games get a little bit too wonky, when games get scrappy, that's where Game Time, I feel, sometimes tends to do a little bit worse. Sometimes tends to defeat himself. I've seen him get very close to defeating himself in some series at DreamHack Austin that, you know, he gets a lead and then slowly starts to lose it as the game gets scrappier and scrappier. Whereas puCK, I also feel like, does incredibly well in those scrappy games. In fact, I feel like he is almost more at home when the game becomes a crazy base trade or, you know, you players just throwing units at each other in low numbers. That's where puCK feels super comfortable, because those are the games where micro and small little techniques and small little decisions really have a much more significant impact. So in a lot of ways, these two players have very differing play styles, and I think it's going to be a matter of who can play to their strengths better, who can force this game or this series more toward their strengths than their opponent. We already see that puCK is doing something a little bit funky as he goes for a kind of starting the wall over at the low ground as opposed to getting all of his buildings up in his main base. In fact, notice the lack of pylons in his main base. Very abnormal for a Protoss player at the 4-minute mark. But I kind of like it. Twilight Council going to research Resonating Glaives, chrono boosting that out while he gets up 3 gateways. And this isn't going to be some crazy all-in or attack. He's got up a robo at the front. This is a pretty typical 3-gate adept harassment. You look to try and get some damage done. Mostly you're just looking to try and force out a lot of units. And some Protoss players don't even really commit too much into this. They see their opponent, oh, you got a lot of Zerglings. I just don't even feel like going into this. Let's just run back home with your adepts. And take a 3rd expansion behind this. Again, I have to mention, especially with a Protoss player playing on Sequencer, that the in-base 3rd expansion, oh, okay, yeah. Very good point that, or very happy that I'm about to mention this, that the in-base 3rd expansion only has 1 Gas Geyser, which extremely difficult for a Protoss player to make work with most builds. But we end up seeing that puCK seems like he wants to take the low ground 3rd expansion instead, which makes a lot of sense. Adepts, their Shade is going to be on cooldown as they encounter some of these roaches. Already going to lose one of them, loses his second one. And he might end up canceling the Shade. No, lets it finish. Splits them up, by the way, which I think is really awesome. So many Protoss players neglect to do this, but unfortunately, target firing the Gas Geyser not entirely ideal. I think he had a bit of a miscontrol there. He's going to end up losing those roaches in the main, or the adepts in the main base, and losing most of the adepts in the 3rd expansion. Does end up losing them all. Kills off a total of 6 workers, which is okay, but trades out quite a few adepts for that. Again, 7 adepts for 6 workers, not entirely ideal. Game Time probably going to be pretty happy with how that trade went out. 4 gateways going to be coming up behind this, so seems as though puCK really just wants to power out into that big old Resonating Glaives, Adept, Immortal army. We may be seeing a Dark Shrine follow this up. Try and get out some Archons or even Templar Archives. But we only have 3 sentries. And I would say that this could lead into that kind of other style of Protoss play, which is you get up like 6 to 8 sentries, you pump out a lot of Immortals and a lot of Adepts and just go for it on 3 bases, try and end the game right there. But I feel like the sentry count is awfully low to do something like that. Still, it is Sequencer. Sequencer's a great map for force fields in general, so maybe you can get away with fewer of those. Nice little War Prism Micro over there. Keeps those Adepts alive. But okay, there is the move out. He's going to try and make this work. He's going up to, I think this is almost 8 gateways, maybe 9? Okay, just 8 warp gates. I say just, but 8 warp gates is a lot. Charge also coming out behind this. This is interesting, considering he already got Resonating Glaives. He probably is looking for some form of a follow-up, but he is pretty committed to making something happen over here. Game Time, in the meanwhile, did not really get up any form of lair tech besides just roaches and Ravagers with roach speed. Force Field's locking down a lot of these units. puCK has to be so careful not to expend too many of these force fields too early on, though. He's going to have around, I think, maybe 4 or 5 force fields left over in a second. Oh, could take a good engagement over here. One force field coming down. Not actually locking out too many units. The Warp Prism gets microed back, keeping the Immortals alive as well. puCK is doing a great job with the micro over here. Losing out on most of his adepts, but should be able to warp in another round. He's delayed on that next round of warp-ins, though, because he had to unwarp prism or unphase, whatever you want to call it, unsituate that warp prism to avoid those corrosive bile shots. And because of that, game time is starting to build up a lot more supply versus puCK. Now, puCK's army, he's keeping alive the important units. He's keeping alive those Immortals. You can see he hasn't lost any of those. He did lose some of the sentries, but he can go home now and feel okay with the fact that, yeah, I got more Immortals coming out. I got charged. Sure, I don't have a lot of crazy tech coming out, but neither does my opponent. Force Fields is locking down some more of those Ravagers. puCK, gotta be careful not to over-engage here. One more force field available, maybe. He's gonna have it in a second. He's trying to use these Zealots to buy time. No force field's gonna come down, though, and the Warp Prism does get taken out, shutting down the Warp-ins as well. Immortal's finally gonna be able to be focus fired down. Game time, charging forward. If he can take out these Immortals, he has a good chance of taking the game. And yes, it looks like he will be able to get all of them. None of the shields are left over. And that is gonna be a cleanup. puCK loses a very, very important, valuable army. Photon Overcharge is going to be able to maybe buy a little bit of time, but there's just a rally across the map of more roaches coming on in. And I'm not sure that puCK can actually defend this anymore. Robotics Facility gets focus fire down by the corrosive bile shots. And game time takes a significant lead. Even has the +1 missile attack upgrade finished in this game. And that was not the only robo. There is a second robo further back inside, maybe the 3rd expansion? Yeah, that's a very exposed 3rd expansion robo. Once game time moves down over there, he may realize this and go for it. Cybernetics Core are going to get taken out. Only Zealots can be warped in, luckily. For puCK, he does have charge, but the second robo is going to get taken out very shortly, and I think puCK knows that he needs that second robo if he wants to keep any hopes in this game alive. And Probes being pulled off the line. This is going to be all she wrote. puCK, it seemed like he was in a really good spot to potentially make things work. He lost a lot of his adepts. He lost a lot of his gateway units, but he kept alive those tech units for so long. I think he just overcommitted out in the middle of the map. Game time, he's able to take the game. Bring Solo to a 1-0 lead in this best of 5. Okay, and so we move on into game number 2. Again, it's always a little bit of a question, which puCK are we getting to see? Do we get to see the puCK that is super on point and can literally take games off of even some of the best players in the world? Or is he not quite feeling it today? Is he maybe not going to be playing his absolute best? Maybe he's having trouble with the setup. Obviously, he's had a lot of problems. If you haven't followed his stream, he's had a lot of problems with his computer having lag, etc. in the past. Really has been rather unlucky in a lot of ways. But all excuses aside, we hop into game number 2 as we find out who is going to be able to take the map on Odyssey. Here we are hopping into game number 2 as we start up in the top left-hand corner of the map. The yellow Zerg player sitting up 1-0 in this best of 5. Give it up for game time from Sloth Esports Club. And his opponent spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, the red Protoss player From OSC Roots, give it up for puCK. So that last game, puCK really tried to make the big 3-base attack work, and he almost did, but wasn't quite able to break through GameTime. GameTime really invested quite heavily into a lot of Roaches and Ravagers, delaying any forms of tech, delaying everything except for, I guess, his upgrades, since he did have +1 missile tech pretty quickly. But because of that, puCK just needed to back up, defend his third with Photon Overcharge, have some more of those warp-ins. I mean, having that warp-in canceled by the Ravagers throwing down the Corrosive Biles, he was able to escape out of there with the Warp Prism, but it delayed so much of his unit production that he eventually just couldn't keep up with GameTime. And I think if he had been able to make it back home in time, he actually would have been okay. If he even had one Force Field to delay the Roaches chasing him across the map on Sequencer that has so many choke points, so many ramps, I think he actually would have been ahead. But at the end of the day, all you can really talk about is what happened, not what could have happened. And get ready to move into game number 2. We got another relatively quick Twilight Council coming out. puCK is one of those players that, interestingly enough, has not been going for the Stargate openings that are more common in this matchup. Most Protoss players have been opening up in this matchup with 2 Oracles, going straight into maybe a 1 Phoenix just to go Overlord hunting. But puCK has really been playing around a lot more with the kind of older school, traditional 3-gate Adept opening with a Robo. Really likes just putting on that light bit of aggression as he gets up a third. And that is exactly what we're seeing once again. We got the 2 gateways coming out. We have a Robo being built over at the front. Once again, an exposed Robo could come back to haunt him as it did in that last game. Really interesting, because, I mean, it made a little bit more sense to me on Sequencer, where you have those quote-unquote backdoor rocks over by the 3rd base. You want to use those gateways to try and create a wall over there, as well as even the Twilight Council. But this map, I kind of feel like throwing down the 2nd gateway over at the front makes a little bit more sense. But, you know, to each their own. puCK is going to have slightly faster reinforcements from the Robo if the Immortals get rallied across the map. But it, of course, comes at the cost of being a little bit more vulnerable. Warp Gate is now finished up, so he can warp in a good round of Adapts and start making his way across the map. Hasn't started his Warp Prism just yet. The Robo has finished. He doesn't quite have the resource for it. There it is. Seems like the Adept's going to be on their own for at least the first round of attacks, as they shade on forward. But that's okay. They're okay to sacrifice their lives. 6 Roaches now out with 4 more on the way. GameTime is going to do his best to try and cut these Adepts off before they get into the mineral line. But I like this. puCK has split up his Adepts once again. In game number 1, he could have gotten a little bit more damage done than he did, just because he had an accidental focus fire on a gas geyser. But this game, he's doing a much better job, killing off almost all of the workers over at the 3rd expansion. Doing some good damage over in the main base as well. Looks like all the units did shade on out of there, or at least got cleaned up. Total of 10 workers killed this game. Much, much better. Even makes out of there alive with 1 Adept. And the Warp Prism can now make its way across the map and continue the aggression. Okay, a couple of Adepts warped in. Behind this, the follow-up is just going to be additional gateways and more Immortals being produced. 3rd expansion has been established, and a 2nd Robo is now going to be on the way. So puCK is going to play this out in a very similar manner to how he did in that last game, I think. Get out a lot of, or do some damage with the Adepts, get out some Immortals, get out a few Sentries, and make a big 3-base push. Oh, picks up that Adept at the last second. Still only at 10 kills. And the Warp Prism should be able to make it out of there without taking too much more damage. There we go. puCK not quite mining from that those gas guys just yet. Now puts them in. But there's the big flood of gateways that we were talking about. Going up to, I believe that's 7 no, that's 8 gateways. That's 9 gateways. Okay, so really going to be going ham on this. And get so charged once again. This is a really interesting decision. I'm not sure what I think about it. after you've already invested into Resonating Glaives, I suppose that charged lots actually do fare better versus Zealots. For those who don't know, a Zealot will win one-on-one versus a Roach if they're both unupgraded. But here we go. Good force shields locking down. Okay, almost good force shields. He softens up a lot of these Roaches, but doesn't actually get that many of them. And Game Time feels confident just charging on forward. Maybe a bit of an overcommittal from Game Time. puCK with some good Sentry micros, pulling these guys back. The Immortals staying alive. Corrosive Biles do some damage, but no. Game Time taps out of there. puCK takes game number 2, tying up the series 1-1. So what we missed was that there were some Adepts in the main base getting damage done. This is what happens when I don't have my WCS Game Heart mod on. I miss things, and I apologize. But the Adepts in the main base just went completely uncontested. I think Game Time realized it at the last second also. Instant replay. Nah, all you guys really missed was literally just Adepts slaughtering things as the Roaches were all just being rallied across the map. And there were 0 defenses back there. But we get ready to hop into game number 3. It's going to be on Ascension to Ire. We'll see you guys there. Welcome back into game number 3 in this best of 5 from WCS NA Challengers winners round of 16. We're going to be starting up here in the top left-hand corner of the map. Top of the yellow Zerg players sitting at a tie series of 1-1. Give it up for Slot Esports Club's Game Time. And his opponent is fine down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. You have the red Protoss player representing OSC Roots. Give it up for puCK. Okay, you know what? I will turn down the map intro. Thank you very much for letting me know, Agamemnon. Whoop. I already turned it down not too long ago, but there we go. It'll be a little bit quieter. And also, these map intros are made by nice usernames, so if you want to know any information about the music that's played during them, I have no idea. I haven't the slightest clue. In fact, with my production setup, I don't even get to hear the music whenever I play those. To me, it's just a silent little slideshow of a beautiful map intro. But okay, game number 3. We take a look and we see that everything looking pretty standard so far. puCK doing the exact same thing he's been doing throughout this series. Goes for the Twilight Council in his main base. Probably going to be adding on 2 additional gateways in his main base and going for the Robo Wall-Off over at his natural expansion. Ascension to Ire can be a bit of a funky map because your 3rd expansion can oftentimes feel kind of far away, honestly. This map, oh god, it feels so similar to Odyssey. I sometimes actually mix them up. Of course, the 3rd expansion may be a little bit closer by than on Odyssey, but it's the same sort of deal. Very similar layout. You can see that puCK is going to be going for this Resonating Glaives upgrade. Has only got 1 gateway, though. Where are his additional gateways? I think that he should have been able... Okay, maybe I'm just crazy. I feel like usually I see the gateways coming down at the same time as the Twilight Council. I'm not sure if puCK did some rearrangement of his build that I didn't notice. But either way, it should eventually lead into a very similar thing. We got the Robo coming up at the front. We got 3 gateways. We got Resonating Glaives coming out, and we got Chrono Boost on the Warp Gate technology. Game Time also going for a very similar thing. I think he knows just got to deal with the same sort of attack. He's a mid-game player to the end. Gets up the lair. He's going to get up an eventual Roach Warren. Probably time this out alongside Roach Speed as well. Pump out a bunch of Roaches in time to deal with the 3-gated depth pressure. And then potentially just go for a big counterattack across the map. I am a bit surprised though, because we have seen a lot more Ling Bling Muta styles. Or, sorry, not Ling Bling Muta. Ling Bling Hydra coming out from more Zerg players these days, especially on these maps. But Game Time seems to just be content on Roaches. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like Game Time does pretty well with his Roaches usually. But I do wonder if it would fare a little bit better against this playstyle from puCK. Granted, when you go for that kind of style, you are very reliant on getting very good Banelink hits off, and when your opponent has great control like puCK, and can oftentimes split up their Adepts, they can use some really good Warp Prism micro. It can be difficult to make that work, but Adepts actually getting surrounded. Using the Adepts on the low ground, I do like this. And shading around, just mostly to buy space, so these Adepts can just cancel, or not actually. Continues to shade in, is gonna immediately get surrounded. Kills off maybe 3 workers? I don't know if I like that. Kills 6 workers total. Oh, there's the Sentry Warping back at home as he continues Immortal production. Adds on those gateways. This is what we're talking about. Same thing every game from puCK. He's got a game plan and he knows what he wants. Third expansion also coming up behind this. Potion Overcharge is going to be available. That plus the Mother's Core damage and any kind of reinforcements coming out are enough to scare Game Time off for now. Where is that Warp Prism though? It's still out on the map. It's getting ready to warp in a few more units. Overlord does catch wind of this. It's going to give Game Time an opportunity to reposition his units if he wants to. He's got a few Lings out on the map, but it's mostly about these Roaches getting in position. puCK even backs up a little bit before warping in some Adepts. Interestingly, an Overseer coming out. Maybe a little bit afraid of a Dark Shrine? I suppose that is a potential follow-up. Although it'd be very late from the usual Dark Shrine timings these days. Oh, puCK not paying attention. The Warp Prism loses it as he just walks it in straight over the Queens. Oh no, poor puCK. I think he was building his Robo back behind this. Doing some kind of macro. That's a really big loss. I mean, that Warp Prism was what won him that last game on Odyssey. It wasn't just about the fact that he defended. It was about the fact that he defended and did devastating damage back on the other side of the map. Now Game Time going to feel very, very safe. Getting up that massive number of Hydras. Getting up a 4th expansion. He doesn't have to get aggressive right now. He shut down the only way that puCK could really get aggressive for at least another 45 seconds to a minute. Until puCK really gets that big next round of warp-ins and moves across the map. He also probably wants another Warp Prism before he can really move out. But instead now, opting for an Observer, getting out another Immortal. Seems like he's going to be playing a bit more passive while he gets up charge. Kind of old school, again, old school style from Game Time. Just Roach Hydra. No shenanigans with Banelings or Baneling run-by. It's just pure, raw, Roach Hydra, mid-game, max-out army. Now, puCK's going to have a better army in terms of tech. He's going to have a lot of Immortals in the mix. He's going to have a decent number of Adepts and also charge lots that he can just immediately rally in. And he's got Disruptors also being made as well. So, I mean, just all of the tech going in favor of puCK. But it is about this strong mid-game force. Game Time's big max-out attack. He's going to try and look to potentially kill off the entire army of puCK. Trade out. If he trades out army for army, then I think Game Time gets the advantage. Because that army's tech, again, much better for puCK. He's going to be losing a lot more valuable units. But Game Time's got to make this work. Shutting down 3rd expansion would also be a good option. As long as he doesn't die to a counterattack. I like that these Roaches and Hydras getting behind the Mineral Line a little bit. Shutting down some of the mining, but here we go. Potion Overcharge is coming out. Some Force Fields trapping in some of the units. Disruptor shot number 1, not too successful. Disruptor shot number 2, gonna connect on a lot of the Hydras on the left-hand side. The Immortals do not have that frontline tank anymore. Some Zealots getting warped in to act as that frontline buffer, but it's not for very long. Immortals all getting charged in on by the Hydras. Pros being pulled off the line, but I think this is just a little bit too much. puCK is dropping so rapidly down supply. Disruptor shots not locking down too much. And game time is going to be taking game number 2. Sorry, game number 3. Bringing them up 2-1 in this best of 5. Okay, and now we sit in a situation. Wait, what am I talking about? That was tied up 1-1, right? I forgot to update my overlay earlier. Game time is now up 2-1. puCK won one of those games. Yes, I'm not crazy. I have to just be sure. Yeah, that was game 3. And now we get ready to hop into game number 4. The map is going to be Blood Boil. I'm not going to delay any longer. Oh, hold on. I do need to delay for a moment. Take a quick look at this. It's a long story, but XSplit sometimes freaks out if I don't, if I try and go to map intros without having gone to some other scenes first. But okay, we're hopping on to Blood Boil. We'll see you guys there. Let me just get that loaded up properly. No, still not okay. 1 second. Hashtag high production value. Okay. Now? No. XSplit still thinks that it has full control over this. That's so frustrating. Okay, give me 1 moment. I think this should do it. We're literally just gonna start going through random scenes to like try and tell XSplit to stop looking at this damn stuff. Give up control of my damn map intro. Let me play my map intros, man. Come on, XSplit. Okay, you know what? We're giving up on it. No map intro for this one, unfortunately. As stuff just does not want to cooperate. But we sit up over here as we move into game number 4. Spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the yellow Zerg player from Sloth Esports Club. Give it up for game time. And his opponent spawned down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. We have the red Protoss player representing OSC Root. Give it up for puCK. Okay, I see your point, Widowmaker. Saying that the moment where just suddenly it seems like I don't know what the score is and my computer just isn't working. In my defense, though, it was because I didn't update the out-of-game score overlay. So I was confused because that said something different than what I thought it was and what the in-game screen said. So I was a little bit confused. And my map intros, that's a whole other thing. I'm not going to explain my setup. It's silly. But either way, we get to enjoy the wonderful production from these two players who are much better at what they do than I am. puCK having a bit of trouble against that big roach attack. I mean, it's just whenever his harassment falls flat, he's really struggled to make a whole lot work because game time just goes for the big counterattack eventually, either on a massive roach counterattack or it's just a roach hydra counterattack, and puCK just falls flat. We'll see if you can make something different work on this map. Blood Boil, often considered a very heavily Zerg favored map. Not only can Zerg players do things like this, like try to take this gold expansion very early on, and take the low ground natural expansion, it's also this single gas geyser that really messes with a Protoss economy. You have 10 mineral patches in your in-base natural, but you only have 1 gas geyser, and that means that you effectively are stuck on 3 gas, unless you take the more forward natural expansion, which can have its own problems and hurdles to deal with. This will likely be the 3rd expansion location, unless puCK opts to go for the gold expansion. But I also wonder, is this going to lead into a bit of a difference in playstyle from puCK? He's been going for that 1 gate Twilight Council, add on 2 more gateways, go into the Resonating Glaives upgrade, put some light pressure on with the Warp Prism, and then just go into a massive 8 to 10 gateway adept attack. while he gets charged behind it in a lot of Immortals. So that's been his game plan. But this game, he is going to go for a Stargate, interestingly enough. I was thinking more, maybe he'll go for Charge. Charge Zealots do not cost gas. Charge only costs 100 gas now. But no, he instead opts to go for the Stargate, which you could argue requires more gas, but technically doesn't require the gas as early on. You can see he doesn't really need that third gas geyser to make an Oracle or an early Phoenix. If he really heavily committed in Stargate play, then yes, he would really start to need a lot more of that gas, and this would be a weird choice. But as of now, this totally makes sense, I think, coming out from puCK. Oh, one Adept does find a kill. Might find a second. Yeah, does find a second kill. Could even get a third drone. Oh, he's going for it. Ah. Does get it, but loses the Adept in the process. Second Adept coming in. Oh, no, sorry. Is this the same Adept? No. Yeah, he did lose that other Adept. He's up to 6 worker kills? No. Looks like one of those kills on a Ling. But still a surprising amount of damage for just the first 2 initial Adepts. Roachborn does come out a bit earlier on, I think, for game time than some of the previous games. Not substantially early, maybe like 15 to 20 seconds earlier. Maybe preparing for a big Adept attack, but it is not going to be the Adepts that game time has to worry about. It's going to be the Oracle. No Spore Crawlers going up either, and game time may really be caught off guard by this. puCK has been playing for 3 games in a row the same exact build order, but Blood Boil, forcing puCK to change it up, is going to work in his favor a little bit. Oracle can just ignore the Queen's low DPS and go after drones. In conjunction with the Adept damage that he did, this is absolutely fantastic for puCK. He is going to be taking a lot of damage, but gets out of there alive. Now killed off 11 workers. And with a third expansion of his own on the way, and the fact that he does not have to worry about choosing between workers and units to make, puCK is going to be able to continue to get up a bigger, scarier army with a Robo, with these Warp Gates finished up. Even gets out of Void Ray to take care of some of those Overlords. Whereas game time is now has to make this choice. Okay, I lost a lot of my drones. I need to remake these, but this is going to make my army a little bit weaker for any kind of big attacks that puCK decides to move out with across the map. Void Ray working on Overlords? More Overlords somewhere. Yeah, a little bit further north. Shutting down the map vision of game time. I think that was the last more forward Overlord out on the map. The rest of the Overlords seem to be pulling their way back home. Game time gonna go for a more forward 4th expansion as well. Just really delaying grabbing that in-base one. And this is kind of a... It's a long-term play. Game time is saying, I'm going to take the more forward expansion. It's a little bit more vulnerable, but the advantage is my 5th expansion. Whenever I feel as though I'm going to have a hard time defending bases, I can always take this as a very safe base. We'll see if it even gets to that stage, though, because game time is finally playing a little bit more alike most Zerg players in the meta these days. Going for the Ling Hydra play. We don't see a Baneling Nest out. But Muscular Augment's getting very close to finishing up, and it seems like he wants to make some damage happen across the map. It feels like he wants to move out soon. He's only sitting on 61 workers, so if you're going to make this many units this early on, you surely want to do something with them. Robotics Bait coming out from puCK, though. He is not looking to move out anytime soon. Looking to get up some more of those Disruptors. They worked out almost very well for him last game. He got 1 or 2 good hits, but I think he just didn't have enough supporting units. This time, if he just holds back a little bit longer, he may be okay, but I don't think game time's going to give him the time for that. puCK sees this with the Revelation thrown down on those Hydras. Going to be very reliant on some Photon overcharges here. Oracle could get involved in the fight, throwing down a Stasis Trap or something, but for now, it's just going to be sitting further back. Good Force Fields. Look at all these Hydras derping around, not able to get involved in the fight. Pylon's taking a little bit of damage, losing some shields, but so far, most of the Lings have been taken care of. puCK is taking a pretty good set of trades, but he's now going to be out of Photon Overcharges, as that was his last one for at least another 10 or so seconds. A lot of Force Field energy still left over. Not the greatest Force Fields over there, but does lock down some of the Hydras. And again, puCK is just buying time for the Disruptors. That is the name of the game for him, because once those Disruptors pop out, his trades are going to look even better, theoretically. Especially at a choke point like this. But now puCK is out of Force Fields. He's out of punch and overcharges. He's relying on the big Disruptor, and he's going to be able to get one. Gets a lot of the Lings, not too many of the Hydras. But only one Disruptor really left alive over here. Second Disruptor does come out. puCK is taking still okay trades. The Immortals are staying alive in the back, protected by those Adepts. Now pulling some probes off the line, though he knows he's in a little bit of trouble. One of the Immortals does end up falling, but not too many Hydras are left over. Some rallying, reinforcing Lings and Hydras coming across the map, but puCK manages to hold on, keeps at least one of these Disruptors alive, and has two more coming out at a time. I think that puCK is going to be in a solid position now. I don't think that GameTime can break this anymore. There are some Banelings coming out, and GameTime begs to differ. He's got a 4-base economy, though. I don't feel like he has to commit in here. The only thing that he's really lacking are upgrades, as now +1 weapons is finished up for puCK. He's starting at +2 weapons, getting up charged. But a Lurker Den is on the way. Okay, well, the Void Ray is apparently trying to kill the Lurker Den. That Queen should take care of it. I'll keep an eye on this just in case. Disruptor killing off his own pylon, but also taking care of all the Banelings as well. Okay, wait, are you serious? Is this actually... No, this will not die. No. Are you kidding me? He gets it? Okay, well, now puCK is just forced GameTime into an all-in position, it feels like. Because now GameTime, remember, a Lurker Den comes from a Hydralisk Den. GameTime can only produce more Lings and Banelings right now. He's remaking his Hydra Den. He is all in. And with 4 Disruptors out, how do you engage into this? Banelings getting canceled. Hydra's getting taken out. Charge is getting closer to finishing. Oh god, and slow Banelings just get obliterated by these Disruptor shots. Disruptor even tanking some of those Baneling hits. And puCK holds. Handily. Establishing a 4th expansion at the gold. Oh my god. And not a Lurker was produced that day. I think if GameTime had been able to finish up that Lurker Den, even if he ends up losing some of those engagements, he's able to situate himself up, maybe put some pressure on this 4th. There's 0 observers out on the map right now. There's an Oracle, to be fair. Could have thrown down some Revelations, but good spread outs would have made this a lot harder. Disruptors would have been the primary force to take out any of those Lurkers, but it could have worked. Oh god, a beautiful stasis trap. Locks down a lot of these drones. Almost like 10, 12 drones. GameTime trying to charge on forward, but oh god, there's just no way you can make this work. There's way too much Protoss here. Banelings don't quite get the connections he wants. The Force Fields are a little bit too good. And this may even just be the tap out moment. GG gets called. puCK ties up the series 2-2, bringing it to the ace match. Okay. Now, hopefully we can get our map intros working again. As the final game is going to be played out on Abyssal Reef. Which apparently I still can't load up my map intros. I apologize, guys. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so we do that. And now maybe? No. Alright, we're giving up on the map intros, ladies and gentlemen. At least until I go to a break and can try and resolve this once again. But, as we have the series tied up 2-2, only one game left over. I want to remind you guys that we have a lot more games coming up after this, so please don't go anywhere after the series is finished if you're interested in watching more, including some awesome names like Volts versus True. We have Volts. Well, actually, no. Hold on. Then we move into the losers bracket matches. Yes. We still have games from players like QXC, Panda Bear Me, Bales, Raze, as Raze did drop down to the losers bracket after losing to Jon Snow, and Silky. But Here we go. We're hopping on to Abyssal Reef with game number 5. And here we are in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. It's the yellow Zerg player representing Sloth Esports Club. Give it up for game time. His opponent. Spawning up here on the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Protoss player from OSC Root. Put your hands together for puCK. So, we have seen puCK for 3 of these 4 games go for the exact same opening. And it was only in that last game that he opened up with Stargate. Really caught game time by surprise. But I would be very, very surprised to see puCK deviate from that 3-gate adept attack that he has been going for in most of these games on Abyssal Reef. Because I really do feel as though that kind of change-up was mostly forced out due to the map. When you have an in-base natural that realistically you can't really get a second gas geyser at, just because on Blood Boil there is no second gas geyser. You have 10 mineral patches and no extra gas geysers. You got to make something different happen. You got to change up your build a little bit. You just won't be able to afford everything you were looking to go for. You won't be able to have as many sentries, or maybe you miss out on that double immortal production. Something has to give. But on Abyssal Reef, you can go back to that style. In fact, it's a great map for a lot of Protoss players. This is, I know, one of the favorite maps for many Protoss players out there. Just because you have all these little choke points where you can lay down the force fields, trap your opponent out of their natural or their main base. Your 4th expansion is very easy to take, as well as your 3rd expansion, very easy to defend. You just fully wall off this area over here, and you just leave your army over by the 3rd. It's a very clear-cut decision. Not as much threat about big Ling run-bys, etc. Okay, but the Nexus going up over here for puCK. We'll see what game time is up to. He has also been mixing it up a little bit. In that last game, going for the Ling Hydra style, opting to skip out on any of the roaches. And it's a bit of a question of how much of that was a reaction to what puCK was doing versus how much of that was him actually just mixing it up. Maybe even just for Blood Boil. I am inclined to say that he was just mixing it up a little bit because he was so caught off guard by the Oracle opening. I don't think he was really prepared. I feel like he would have thrown down the Roach Warren by 4 minutes otherwise. And started preparing for the big Adept attack that he was expecting to come out. Alright, well, the first Adept is going to shade into the main base. Ends up canceling, seeing a few Lings that have already caught wind of it. And just moves into the 3rd expansion. Could actually go straight into the mineral line. Let this shade finish, maybe. Oh. Sees those Lings and cancels again. But there it is. We do see Twilight Council and double gateways walling off that ramp. It is going to be a return to style for puCK. So, with Lair coming out, this is going to be a pretty similar style that we've seen from some of the previous earlier games from Game Time. Going to be going to that Roach Warren, getting up his Lair all around 4 minutes. I think Roach Warren's maybe just a 20 or 30 seconds earlier this game. But that may just be partially dependent on the map. The Adepts take longer or shorter to make their way across the map on certain places. These Adepts not paying attention. Those Lings could have actually killed the probe. But nobody's expecting that usually. In fact, puCK is not oh my god! puCK with a really delayed reaction. Photon overcharge over the natural after the Lings have already left. Killing off 1 or 2 workers. 2 workers killed. Not a massive amount of damage, but I believe Game Time should have seen the Twilight Council. Yeah, confirms that. Confirms what he's up against. Kind of mild victories over there. Being very annoying and forcing out a Photon overcharge is also just a mental victory. puCK splits up his Adepts once again. There's no Warp Prism out just yet. The Warp Prism is only just now getting started, so it'll be a while before these Adepts have that kind of backup support, that escape mechanism. for now, it looks like it's just going to be very, very light threats of pressure, as puCK even just retreating all the way back home. But the game is definitely calming down. We're going to be waiting to see what happens when puCK adds on all of the gateways. Yep, there's 2 more gateways. Looking for that second robo pretty soon, and then an additional 3 to 4 gateways coming down after that. Followed up by a very big push out. And lo and behold, maybe we'll see Charge come out again. I'm trying to think back to how the series has gone, though. I feel as though it's kind of gone back and forth on whether or not GameTime has been able to defend against this attack. It seems like he ended up losing to this attack once, but 2 of the other games he was able to defend pretty well. The one game he lost, though, was because the Warp Prism had moved in behind his attack, and GameTime got a little bit overeager on Odyssey, tried to go in for a big counterattack with the Roach Ravager, and just barely didn't quite break puCK, but also took massive amounts of damage from the Warp Prism harassment. So if that doesn't happen, I feel like he just does still have a transition point. So why change what isn't broken? It seems like he's been able to defend mostly against this kind of playstyle. Well, Hallucinating Phoenix kind of scouting ahead, maybe trying to get an eye on where the roaches are, but maybe even just trying to look around to see Layer Tech confirm that, and also maybe look for a Hydra Den. He doesn't really confirm too much. Sees that there's no gas geysers over at the 3rd. That's kind of nice. But there is going to be a very large roach attack coming out from GameTime. puCK has a scary looking army, but needs to have some on-point force fields. Photon overcharge is being used. Oh, a couple of roaches coming in from the south side as well. Ravager's immediately knocking down those force fields, and puCK is going to start losing his sentries very soon. Some more force fields go out, but oh god, I don't think that puCK actually has enough over here. There's only the Immortals left over as the final sentry ends up falling. The final Immortals end up falling. Another Immortal gets rallied in, but to what end? Good race. GGs get called, and GameTime takes the 3-2 victory, advances on to the winners round 8. Well, big congratulations to GameTime. I mean, he moves in with a very large roach army and just takes a very concrete, clean victory at the 7-minute and 30-second mark. But puCK falls down to the losers bracket, where he will have an opportunity to make his big, deep run. As I won't spoil the results of that. Of course, these are all games that were played yesterday, and we're just trying to cover them before day 2 starts in about 4 hours. So we're gonna take a short break while I sort of rest my voice for a moment, get some more water. And we'll be back with more WCS NA Challenger action. The next series is going to be a ZVZ between Volts and True. So look forward to that. We'll see you guys in a little bit.